Hey folks, I am Brett Kinsella, also known as CreatoriousRex, and we are here with the Twin this week in NFT news. This is where we talk about the news of the week, what it means, give you perspective, and with me is my co-host, Skot Leach.
How are you?
I'm doing well, Scott. Good to see you today. Love the hat.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so we have a pretty busy schedule today. So I'm gonna tell you two quick things, everyone listening. We're going to walk through what we're going to do. Is we're going to talk about marketplaces. Coinbase is going to be number one. A couple of things going on there. We're going to do projects. VeeFriends, not surprisingly, there's some interesting things going on there. And we're going to talk about brands and NFT lands because that's always a popular segment. So we're going to go through those things. I just want to mention, if any of you are artists who are watching this, go to niftorian.com. We have an NFT artist accelerator. We are reviewing applications right now for the May and June cohort. So you have a couple days to get it in, but if you do, we'll definitely take a look at it and we'll try to do an interview if you're a good fit for the program. By the way, what that is, it's just 8 weeks. If you know tech, it's kind of like Y Combinator for artists. In this world, artists are like the software engineers of tech startups. And a lot of them don't know all the things you need to know to have a successful NFT project. And so we try to run them through a curriculum. You meet people, you get good advice, help you take your NFT project to another level, whether it could be a brand new project or it could be something you've already been working on for a while. Okay, Scott, it's been a couple of weeks since we've gotten together.
Yes.
Just have a great artist spotlight that just went up from Colin Goldberg, which I think a lot of people will be interested in. But we haven't done the Twin in a couple of weeks. So we have a ton of activity to go through. And I think what we should start with is marketplaces. The big news this week is the long-awaited, the promised in Q4 Coinbase NFT marketplace arrived in Q2. So just about 4 months late. But really interesting. So first of all, it's a beta release. I think there's two things I would point out. So first of all, as of last week, they had 4 million people on the waiting list. So if your number is not in the first 20,000, don't expect to get active anytime soon would be my guess. Certainly if you're over 100,000, not good. I think I've got a couple in the 10 to 20,000 range. And then I've got another maybe invite or registration in the 125,000 range. So we'll see. We'll see when we start getting the emails for those. In fact, I haven't looked. They may have let more people in today. I didn't look. But I was not part of the first few thousand that they let on. Okay, so there are a few different things about this. I guess the first question is, Scott, have you been on there yet?
I have not. No, I was not one of the invited folks.
Well, they certainly had a lot of people who were already in the collab with this. You know, they reached out to a lot of the successful projects already. So some of their founders are in there, and then some of the influencers, the NFT influencers in the space, like the ones with the really big followings, are in there. There's been a little bit of controversy back and forth, but I'll stay away from that. So a couple of things that are going on. So first of all, you have, in this case, you have a profile page, which gives you a little bit more information than you'd have on, let's say, an OpenSea profile page. So it shows things that you own in this area. And then there's followers and following. So basically trying to bring Twitter or some type of social network concept into here. And you can just follow. If you find someone's page, you can follow them and you can keep track of what's going on, which I think is pretty interesting. There's more room to talk a little bit about yourself and to put in your social links as well, so that people can find you on the other social platforms. So I think this is the innovation. I mean, some people will say the innovation is 0% fees for a short time or a limited time, transaction fees, which is fine. I don't think anybody's going to make a big deal out of that because it's going to be a transaction fee at some point. But I think this idea of giving people essentially a social network around NFTs, it sort of exists already with Twitter, but this is obviously more on brand. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I was sort of waiting for someone to do this because it just makes sense. If you're paying, you know, if you're collecting NFTs and if you're part of the community, you want to be able to showcase those things. And we saw Twitter do this, right, with the badges. Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. I'll be curious to see how it evolves over time. And how the hiding stuff is and that sort of thing. If there's a kind of area that you curate for folks to see or not. But yeah, it's not, I wouldn't say it's like staggering innovation by any stretch, but I think it's a good start towards something that we know is probably going to happen.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people obviously that use Coinbase already that aren't necessarily in the NFT market. So that's what we're going to be interested in, but it might be a long time before we see them because so many people who are already in the NFT world have signed up to have access to Coinbase. I think, and part of that too is there's an expectation that there's going to be some exclusive drops, some exclusive mintings, which are going to take place on Coinbase because they're clearly a big company, huge market cap. They're putting a lot into this. They're going to be promoting things. And one of the other things I'll point out is the product managers that had a product for this program, really talked about this idea of discovery. So it's not just about purchasing. It's not just about commerce. Discovering is discovery and being able to drive that a little bit more effectively than what we see in these other marketplaces, which is like, a featured image, 3 images in a carousel, and then good luck trying to find anything.
Yeah, I think I'll be really curious to see how that works because I think I mentioned before, I was at eBay for a while and discovery was always tricky. People go to eBay to buy something specific or sell something specific, and NFTs feel a little similar to me, that you sort of know the collection you're going to look at, or you're looking based on, a lot of times for me personally, I'll use what's got a lot of activity recently. But yeah, if someone could solve the discovery thing, that could be interesting. It's hard for me to imagine. That's a tricky proposition, I think.
I think it is. And if you do it just algorithmically, all you're doing is you're basically trend following, and then you're always going to be behind. If you do it almost any other way, what you're going to wind up doing is putting your thumb on the scale to help out some favored few, which is absolutely what I expect to happen here. So if you win the lottery, so to speak, and you get favored by Coinbase, maybe it'll be a big deal. It used to be a big deal to show up on the front page of OpenSea. I think that's less impactful now because I generally just take a quick look at those NFTs on the front page of OpenSea, and it used to be within an hour of those going up, they would be gone, but now sometimes I'll click and there's like, they're all available or like one edition is minted.
Yeah. I think as we start to see how different people value and use the NFTs, we may see some of that change. For example, as more and more utility cases come about and some of those utility cases get more defined, I could see them organizing content by utility, right? And that might be a way to get some discovery going.
I can't believe that's ever going to happen. Because the categories, right, are going to be really hard, and then the categories are going to come and go. So for example, event, you get access to an event. After that event is over, are you still categorized as an event? It's not good for that.
Yeah,
event.
That's a good question. Yeah, there's all kinds of things like that. It's tricky. I think they'll probably have to do the curated thing for a while, and it is putting your thumb on the scale. But
well, first of all, I think it would be really cool, and there are ways that you could use some algorithms to automatically categorize things, and basically just use search. And I mean, you can do it right now with metadata, but you could basically do some labeling, some automated labeling of things based on the description, other activity. Maybe you would let the
community,
the creators, maybe you'd let the creators edit that so that you have a better listing. Maybe you'd let
what could be it could be interesting if you had a kind of almost like Pinterest or something, where you let communities build kind of like dream collections. So it's not necessarily what they hold, but it's like a playlist of the best of the best. And then people could create like, hidden gems or blue chips or my favorite apes or these kind of collections of other people hold them, but they're sort of bringing them together to say, here's an interesting playlist of it.
Yeah, I'm seeing people do that in other spaces right now. So that'd be pretty cool. Okay, let's move on to our next story, which is probably a brief one, but it's LooksRare. And they just announced something today, and that is that you can now earn looks rewards for listing.
Yes. I actually went to go look at this right now because
not selling.
yes.
Yeah. Well, so you know, the risk is you certainly have things that you could list that would be eligible for rewards. The risk is someone might buy it.
Yes.
Because I know you don't.
You can list it 150%, 1.5x the price.
One or the floor, you mean?
Yeah, the floor. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, right. So if you've got a rare in a collection, you're not going to do this.
Yeah, although I wonder if they're doing. I think that I looked at it for a mutant and one of my Bored Ape to see. I think maybe they do calculate. No, never mind.
Okay. So first of all, you can't just list anything. It has to be one of the top 25 collections is designated by them. So
within 1.5x the price.
Right.
And it's over time. There's a cap. You can only earn so much.
Right. And there's a certain amount every day of looks available. So it depends also on how many people are listing that day. You earn money every hour that's listed. So this strikes me as a rich get richer type of prospect. But okay, you know, they're trying. So they had their first mechanic, which was you get looks rewards for having traded on OpenSea. So you got some looks from that, and then you could stake them to get more rewards. And they were splitting that between ETH and looks. Now you've got a couple options there. But the more notorious one was the feature where you could actually trade and you get looks, and people were just swapping bits between articles or between wallets. And they were racking up a ton of looks.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is interesting. Here's what there's so many ways to game this, right? But I do think that the fact that this feels to me like a good use of incentive of reward type stuff. It leads to lots of, we're talking about it now, but the fact that it gets people doing stuff, I think is good in the spot they're in. Like they need to.
Yeah, that's really important, I think. So if you go in there, like when was the last time you were on Looks? A couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
I go somewhat frequently. Ironically, I go more to check out my Looks rewards than I do. But they announced that new feature where you can bulk sell now, and I like that. And I'll occasionally look, like if I'm actually buying something, I'll usually check LooksRare, or if I'm selling something, I'll check LooksRare. I mean, I'd prefer to sell all my stuff on LooksRare if folks were there to buy it.
Yeah, if there were more liquidity. So I'm wondering if getting people there to list will get more people in. I'm in there maybe once a week. If you get people in there more often, then they're more likely to start to develop a habit of going there. They might do what you do. Like you might look before you buy something there.
So it'd be interesting if they had a mechanic that said you could, if you're only listed there, you get a reward. So they check to see if you're on any other marketplaces, and if you're not, you get looks token for listing only with them.
That'd be a nice kicker. I like that. Well, it's just interesting. They're using the financial incentive. It's smart. They've got the token. OpenSea doesn't have the token, so they don't have anything. I think I'm right around break even with looks. They gave me a bunch of looks. I just staked it. Looks crashed, but then the compounding's pretty aggressive. So I think I'm back to the same value I started with 4 months ago.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of up though, isn't it? Maybe.
Might be. I don't know.
I guess it's all over the place. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, it's very volatile and nobody knows. But I think this is a great move on their part, at least just to get people looking at it again. And we'll see.
Yes, I agree with that.
They've got great features. Will Coinbase just copy those features? Will OpenSea ever copy these like really useful features? I don't know. but smart of them to do that. Okay, let's go to brands and NFT lands, I think. And we have a brand that a lot of people are familiar with, and that's Amazon. So Amazon's pretty big in e-commerce, and that's Andy Jassy. Just in case you guys missed it, Jeff Bezos is no longer CEO. That guy's the CEO. And he mentioned a little over a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, that Amazon eventually might look at NFTs. He said, I don't own any crypto. I don't own any NFTs, but we sell things. Maybe the people would want to buy that on Amazon. It struck me as telling in a couple ways. So first of all, if Amazon was actually planning on this, Andy would know about it. I don't think he was like dissembling there. He would have already been like, he would have said, oh, I own some crypto. I bought an NFT or something like that. And, it would be, so that's one thing. I don't think it's imminent. They could do something quickly if they wanted to. But I started thinking, like, what would that mean if NFTs were being sold on Amazon?
I think we'd see all the regulatory stuff would speed up. That's for sure. I think.
Oh yes, that's a good point.
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Well, just think about it. Just think about their mechanics. So first of all, you can pay to have your product listed or featured based on searches. So people could do a search. It could be a search for anything. Your NFT could come up at the top, right? Can you imagine what that would do to their search algorithm? They'd be having all this stuff that's like NFTs would be showing up everywhere.
Yeah.
Because the marginal benefit of like selling one of these is much higher than the marginal cost of an Amazon ad, generally speaking. So they have some filters about what can show up where, but I think we'd start seeing a lot of that. And then if people were actually searching on NFTs, they would have these ad placements, which is not something we see on the other marketplaces.
Yeah. This is like, I mean, they're sort of like the evil empire now, right? Whether you agree with that or not, but they're in that site. If anyone can figure out the utility thing quickly, I feel like Amazon's in a position to do that. Not saying I think that they should be the ones to decide that, but I think we'd see things change really quick. Outside of NFTs, I think just allowing people to purchase things with coin would be huge.
Oh, right. Yep. Well, I'll say one other thing too, and we should probably do a longer session on this as well. Have you been on First Dibs at all?
No.
Okay. So First Dibs is actually like a luxury lifestyle e-commerce site.
Okay.
Jewelry, home furnishings, all high-end stuff. And they have like 350,000 listings of artwork, right? Because it's all about stuff that like people with disposable income would put in their house. Make their house nice. Like you can buy Warhols on there.
Okay.
I was looking at, there's a lot of famous artists on there, but it's just like, oh, these people have disposable income. We're trying to get, people to spend thousands of dollars every time they come here. Okay. Yep. So they opened up an NFT marketplace or an NFT segment there not too long ago. And it's by invitation only. Well, there's an application process for artists to get on there. So there's not that many, although they've expanded significantly recently. Well, so I've been there to see some artists. Artists have sent me some things. Hey, check out my thing. I'm on First Dibs now. Okay, great. And they have some features that people like. But here's what I noticed. I wound up registering. Now I get emails from them every day about everything except for NFTs. It has nothing to do with the artists I've visited. And now they're doing retargeting ads. So I start seeing this all over the place. So I'm seeing, they're pushing jewelry on me and stuff like this. It's like, oh, this, for an artist out there, like, just consider this like a public service announcement. This might not be the impression you want to leave with your prospective collectors.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a bummer.
It looks good.
Yeah.
There's some good artists on there, some really nice art on there.
Yeah.
I may wind up using it. I'm just like, you got to be kidding me that this is that this is what they're doing, but they don't care. They don't care about the art.
Yeah.
They're an e-commerce company. They're just trying to use all the tools that they use to sell you.
Yeah.
Skis.
Yeah. Actually, you know what would be, that sucks. What would be interesting about Amazon, a use case I just thought of because it's something at Rally that I'd been thinking about, redemption for physical goods from an NFT. So if Amazon allowed a seller to issue an NFT that could be effectively be burned in exchange for an item, I'd be into that.
What a good segue. Let's talk about Ardbeg. Ardbeg is Scottish whiskey. And people might be familiar with Block Bar. Block Bar works with the spirits industry for NFTs. They have this, I can't pronounce the new barrel that they created for this, but the new sub brand. But Ardbeg has this thing. They put it in a barrel, put it 6 feet under the ground, under peat, and left it for a year. And just to see what it would taste like, and they're selling as an NFT. So now this is interesting because this is similar to another project we talked about, I think last fall, where with the Block Bar RAM, you can buy the NFT. I think they're 1 ETH. But if you want the bottle, you have to burn the NFT.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's clever.
Well,
I mean, it's novel but it's, yeah, I like this. So
Block Bar is in Singapore. And, you know, one of the interesting things about some of the rare spirits, wine, whiskey, whatever it might be, is that it's really hard to trade these. If you think of it as an asset, you've got to take possession of it, and then you have to, if you want to sell it, you've got to figure out a place to list it, and then once someone purchases it, then you have to go through the physical fulfillment process. Unless there's someone else who'll do that for you. But they're basically, what they're doing is they're not shipping it to anybody. They're just, you buy the NFT and you can sell the NFT. So someone who wants to burn it for the bottle can just buy the paper from you, basically the digital paper, and then they burn it, and the folks in Singapore will ship it anywhere in the world.
Yeah, it's smart, right? I mean, and I think we talked about this last time. This could be applied to all sorts of stuff: collectible cards, comics, other things that are in, you know, they're being held somewhere to keep them safe. This provides a way to trade, sell without jeopardizing the physical item. Yeah, it's smart. Makes a lot of sense.
Well,
it especially makes sense with something that could age. Like when you get into the, you know, what if the distiller did this at the time they started aging it? Like, and then you could, depending on when you pull the NFT out, if you want to redeem it early, it's not ready, or you can just let it keep going, or I don't know. There's some interesting stuff there that could.
Yeah, I mean, that would be true, particularly for wine, which,
you
know, you buy the NFT, and then because that year turns out to be a good year, or because, you know, at 10 years versus 6 years, it's, you know, considered to be a peak. It could go up in value. I think at some point you'd be asymptotic or would go down. But yeah, I think that's interesting. But I like this. I like the mechanic. It is interesting to me, though, if you look at Ardbeg whiskeys, even the higher end ones they have, they go between $300 and $400 a bottle. So this one is over 3,000 a bottle if you're just talking about an ETH. So, in fact, I think it might be just a little over an ETH, but you call it 3 to 3,500. So you're talking about a 10x markup. Now, it is a special bottle. It's one that you can't buy anywhere else. It's only for this NFT thing. It's a limited. I think they just did 2 barrels or something like that they buried. And who knows what their yield was off of those, if they got full yield or not. But there's not a lot of bottles. So it's going to be rare. Maybe it's good. I saw a guy who's one of the distillers. He was drinking it. He seemed to like it. So, and then you've got the cost of shipping from Singapore, which and for something, you know, obviously breakable and stuff like that. Now, there were some people who were talking about like, oh, what are the duties going to be at all these things? Well, it's actually, they're affiliated, I think, with duty free. So
Okay.
They know how to handle all that. But in any event, I guess it's, you're paying 10% of that price for the bottle and something like 90% for the shipment. If you ever buy it or if you ever do it. But hopefully if it's an investment, you sell it before then. Okay. So I have something else I wanted to bring up too. Here's another brand, Golden State Warriors. You might know a little bit about them.
Yeah.
So they've got this new NFT out. Or they've got a few versions of it. But I thought it was kind of a clever implementation. Actually don't know how that's going right now. But it's this idea that if you have it, you get first chance at playoff tickets, or you are, depending on which one you buy, you might be guaranteed a playoff ticket, coming up, and then access to players and season passes and all these other types of things. This strikes me as a good mechanic for a sports team.
Yeah. We're starting to see utility attempts, right? I think this stuff is great, and we'll see how it all plays out. But once they start doing this, I think there's going to be lots of neat implications. If season tickets were NFTs, which would make sense, you could have other layers too, of like, if you go to that game, you can get a PO-op there that says you were there. And if you attend every game you have tickets to, do you get some other benefit? There should just be lots of really neat implications to this stuff. And it's a way to reward not just people that can afford the NFTs, but to award people who are there or got in early or are really true fans of the team, right? So there's some really neat implications to it.
Yeah, I think it's almost like it's basically it's like a fan club, but there's an exclusive tier, right? So if you have this, you have access to things. So I really like it. I really like where they're headed. So I'll be interested to see how that goes. We had another thing that I thought we'd come back to. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Star Trek was coming out with their. It's through Recur. They sold out. All the things sold out very quickly. In fact, there was something for Recur Pass holders only. And I showed up 15 minutes after it went, or maybe it went at 45. I don't remember. It was within an hour. They were all gone, of course. So I was like, why do I have these Recur Passes? But then they have the Admiral Pack as well. Or maybe that was the Recur Pass holder one. There's another one that you could buy, which was 15,000. The thing I think is interesting about this is, okay, so first of all, there was a lot of discussion on NFT Twitter, which is often wrong, saying Star Trek fans don't like NFTs. Because a few Star Trek fans did express this sentiment, but of course, they're the minority. There's plenty of people who are Star Trek and non-Star Trek fans who are going to buy this. But the other thing is, this is a game. This isn't just a collectible.
Yeah.
Because right now this is season 0. You get your ship. Season 1, you get your crew, and then season 3, I think or 2, you do quests or something like that.
Yeah, and that I think it's cool that sold out. This is one of those IPs that I think fits well within it feels to me, the creative side of me, that there's lots of opportunity here to go deep into the NFT thing, especially in a gaming like environment. As to the naysayers, I feel like they have the megaphone right now, and that's what we're hearing. And that's what's getting written up about. And it's a good narrative. I mean, there's going to it's playing, depending on your publication, there's going to be a lot of people. In fact, every publication, there's going to be more people who don't like NFTs than like NFTs. Yes.
I mean, so yeah, I think this is actually a really good one, and we'll keep track how it's going. They seem the launch and the concept seem good from the start, which I can't say for all of these, particularly these movie franchises.
True.
Okay, so there's another movie franchise one I want to bring up, and this is from Spike Lee's, I think it's 1984 film, She's Gotta Have It. So Mars Blackman, played by Spike Lee, really famous movie from the 80s. Really, a lot of people know Spike Lee now, but in the 80s, he was an up and comer. He wasn't really known. before he became eponymous with the New York Knicks, or synonymous, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
with the New York Knicks. So he has an interesting thing here where he's basically, I think there's like, I can't remember the number, but it's several thousand different clips of Mars Blackman in them. So everyone gets basically a different frame of the movie. So they are unique in that way, which is interesting. But here's the interesting thing. He owns all the rights. So unlike Quentin Tarantino, there's no one to sue him about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's smart. There's a whole bunch of opportunity now for whether you were a filmmaker or what have you. If you had the rights to your stuff and you've been sort of, it's old IP and it might still work for you, but it's sitting there. There's so much opportunity, I think. And it's what we saw it like with the wave of sequels and reboots, right? These old franchises getting rebooted into movies and sort of coming back to life. I think for content creators who own that stuff, we're going to see a bunch more of this sort of thing. And the Spike Lee stuff works. I mean, the dudes in Auteur, like collectors are going to want that.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, if NFTs are about culture, so anything that Spike Lee has done would seem to me to rate, because he's been very important to culture. And you know, his films in the 1980s were really significant. You know, they weren't necessarily significant in box office. A couple of them did fairly well. They were really significant culturally. Like everyone knew.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. There were not black indie filmmakers that made it.
Well, plus they were funny. I mean, like, it is different style and things like that. So
yeah, it was another voice. I mean, that's yes.
Okay. So let's do the opposite of She's Gotta Have It. And that's Con France. So I thought this was kind of interesting. What should I say about this? This is the old port. And the municipality, I don't know if they call it a town or a city of Cannes, I think it's city, they are selling this as an NFT. So what does that mean? Well, it's a publicity stunt, I think, but they're going to actually use it for preservation funds. I thought that was sort of interesting because it was this other museum in France we did a couple of weeks ago that was selling NFTs of these famous tapestries that they housed. But these tapestries needed to be, what do they call it? Revitalized, renewed. They needed some work on them because they were older and they were showing some wear. And they sold the NFTs, and that's going to fund the project. I thought it was very interesting. So Con France is now doing this to actually help pay for the upkeep of 11 historic spaces in the town.
Yeah, I think the intention is great here, right? And if there's a way that the NFT reflects that contribution, that's a neat thing. But it is funny when you start pinning real world places to virtual goods. Like reminds me of those stars. Like you can buy a star for someone.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and like you bring up a good point here. So in general, like any public entity that's going to like, maybe some corporate entities too, but any public entity that's going to like sell like public space to people with basically no rights associated with that, other than like, you have this little token, you know, strikes me as like close to public fraud. And I know why they do it, because like in government, you always want more money because like it's difficult because people don't want to give their money. Like, and you want to do so many wonderful things, but you bring up this.
They should have sold the Brooklyn Bridge as like an April Fool's Day prank. That would have been that old cliche about
that. In New York City, though, they would have definitely kept the money. It wouldn't have been a prank. So I think you bring up this good point, though, like the star or something like this. I mean, people buy pins, people give money to restore publicly owned artwork or monuments or those types of things. It's not actually a bad idea to say, oh, well, if you're going to be a patron, they might put your name on it. They might etch your name on whatever it is that you spend money on to help them restore. Maybe this is a way to get more people involved, and for people to say, you know, to be able to, you know, say, you know, this is a really important place to me, and I just wanted to make sure that I was part of the restoration process.
Yeah. There's something neat here with blockchain technology, the immutability of it. There is a notion of legacy that's happening, and you can, I think it's a way to, it could be a way to get people to be more altruistic and consider donations and helping others if they know that there's a story of you contributing is going to exist forever. Like after you're gone, people will know that you helped this.
Well, that is a really interesting idea, because today, like you might have a CV or a resume.
Yeah.
This is the work that you did. Mm-hmm. And in your obituary, right? Someone who knows you better than that will talk about things that weren't on your resume. Mm-hmm. That you were in the volunteer fire department, or you helped out this local charity.
Yeah.
This is an interesting thing. Could this be
I think it's
public record of people's lives?
Yeah, I think there is something interesting there, because everyone, the flex is great. Like people like that. And if the flex is benefits lots of people, sure, go nuts. Show off your ape in a frame in the background. But this notion of legacy, like I think most people want their existence to have more value than just the stuff they owned, right? So knowing that you leave behind this immutable, like, oh, I once helped out a city. I don't know. I think there's something there that could really be interesting.
Or at least till the apocalypse, it'll be around. I'd still go with stone tablets. True. Those things are going to last a lot longer.
Well, they could do the Voyager thing and shoot a few more gold records out before.
Well, so you've got your resume, you've got POAPs are sort of like this idea of the places that you've been, right? Mm-hmm. It's almost like the Foursquare or the Facebook Places type of thing that on the blockchain. And so now we've got something like this. These are the things that you've expressed interest in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's neat. I think it'll be really neat. I mean, we're living in times now where our knock on wood, we skip the apocalypse part, that our grandchildren and great-grandchildren will know more about us than I don't know shit about my grandparents outside of like the food they made me eat when I stayed with them and the few experiences I had with them. But beyond that, I have no idea who they were as people outside of what my parents told me. And they're probably not much more knowledgeable than I am. And they have, I don't know. I think there's something really fascinating there. That's going to happen anyway. But when you factor in blockchain, I think there's a way to record actions that are not, I don't know. Yeah. It's neat to think about.
Well, and it's a nice counterbalance of just like basically your Amazon shopping log. Exactly. We're going to be known by what we purchased. That's the only record that's going to be left of us. So I like this, it'll balance it out a little bit. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're going to get into some projects. And of course, when do we not talk about Gary Vaynerchuk and one of his many, many things he's going on? So VeeFriends. So VeeFriends 2, I think this is actually the pre-reveal image. Well, it's actually a game, but we'll get into that for VeeFriends 2, but they launched it before VeeFriends came out. VeeFriends had some challenges, but so really interesting. I haven't seen anyone do this before. Is it the first time that someone has created an NFT that you can actually play the game within the NFT?
There was another one. There was an arcade one that did something like this. I forget the name of the.
Oh yeah, and I think G Money has something which is like Brick Breaker or something like that.
But I thought this was neat as a pre-reveal. So these haven't been revealed, and you play the game as the pre-reveal. It's cool.
You know what's brilliant about it is people don't like to wait. Mm-hmm. They're okay with the little flashing images. It could be this, it could be that. Like this is going to be amazing, and like the anticipation. But they get sick of that after 24 hours.
Yeah.
So now when they go to check, the game is there. And they're probably like, oh, geez, they haven't revealed yet. Oh, let me just let me do Flappy Bird for a few minutes.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, look, it's Flappy Bird, like you and it's light and not super deep, but this is a sign of things to come. the fact that you can have this, like, who knows what someone else will do with this kind of thing in the future? Will how you perform in the game influence what the NFT becomes? Will other choices you make in the pre-reveal do something? I don't know. I think there's lots of neat stuff here, and I think it's clever. It's easy. I think it would be easy for people to look at this and be like, okay, whatever. But I'm a Vaynerchuk fan, and we know that. I've established that. But I think the fact that he's still pushing, even in little ways like this, is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, and this wasn't free to develop this.
No.
He's just trying to do things where he adds value.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another way he added value was VeeFriends Series 2 came out. Mm-hmm. Now, how many of these have you minted at this point?
40. Yeah. So I got, and I'll explain that because this is interesting, the way they did this. They had their whitelist, but instead of calling it a whitelist, they called it a friends list. So whatever. The way that worked is if you held his book games NFTs, that you got like a 30% chance of getting it on that whitelist. And I happened to hold a bunch of those. So I think I got like 25 spots for that. So those I had to pay for, the mint price for. But then because I held Series 1, you get a VeeFriend for free.
Right.
And you get to go claim a Series 2 for free. Yeah.
Yeah.
The interesting thing there was that those ones will tell you, even though they haven't been revealed, some of the properties are revealed because you get the same character that you have. So if you have the tiger, you'll get another tiger.
Well, plus
so there's a neat like arbitrage thing happening right now where people are going and trying to get those.
Yeah, don't you have like the bubblegum or something like that?
Yeah, I have a couple spectaculars, and those ones have these special poses. So there's some neat stuff happening. Even pre-reveal, you can see people have enough insight to start trading at different volumes. So if you go in there, you'll see some that are selling higher. And at first glance, you might think like, what, did that person just not shop around? Like, why'd they do that? But you look close and realize they're looking for a specific character or a spectacular, whatever the case may be. So pretty interesting so far how they're doing it. And the fact that it was delayed several days because they wanted to get it right. But so far it's gone really smooth. They're also doing like this gas strategy where you'll mint and it might take up to a couple hours because they want to make sure they keep the gas price down.
Yeah, it was like, what was it? I think I spent $30, maybe less than that. It was nothing.
Yeah, it's getting better. I mean, when you compare this, for anyone that was there for the first VeeFriends launch and mint, like it was delayed.
Oh, yeah,
it was insane.
I spent over $800 on one of my mints, I think.
Yeah.
But in this case, though, the gas was a little bit different. It wasn't just like it pulled up like the real-time gas fee. It just gave you basically a flat gas fee and basically said, we'll take care of it for you. Look for it on the blockchain.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're starting to see how this, it's neat to see a project that came out a year ago and to see it do another release and how it's changed and improved, especially for someone that understands. He fundamentally believes NFTs are going to be a thing, as most of us do, and knows that user experience needs to, will get better and better. And they're demonstrating that that's exactly what's happening.
Okay. So on the Gary Vee front, you also were just on a Hangout Hawk. When was that? Yesterday?
Yeah. Yeah. That was yesterday. So yeah, Hangout Hawk was one of the first Series 1 tokens, NFTs that gave you different utility. And that one is the Hawks. Anyone who holds that Hangout Hawk gets to, I think there's like 5 or 6 meetings with him a year that are about an hour long. And it's everything from folks asking him questions to him talking about the projects. Sometimes there's a little bit of alpha, but it's more, pardon me, more just him chatting with folks and answering questions. And it's actually been really beneficial for some folks. There was someone on there that was, I forget what the exact use case, but they were running a business and they needed some help building up their social. So he retweeted them and drove a lot of traffic to them and helped them kind of get started. So like,
how much?
Obviously that's not going to happen to everyone, but Yeah, yesterday I actually had one of my questions answered. I usually don't have much, but I was like, oh, I'm curious to get his take on it. And we chatted for a while. It was really cool. I'll see if I can get that section of video and host it somewhere if folks are interested. I think he shares that stuff out too. But yeah, it was great. I mean,
yeah. So there's how many Hangout Hawks out there? 150?
I think there's 128, I want to say.
Okay. So there's a little over 100. And what's the attendance like?
I'd say average, it's around like 90 people, maybe.
Is that changed since the beginning?
I
wonder if there's waning enthusiasm, or it's because we have VCon coming up in Series 2 that it was down and back up, or it's been consistent.
Yeah, it seems like it's been pretty consistent. Sometimes folks will loan their session out to someone else, so they'll let someone else go on their behalf. I've seen that happen a few times. Another neat thing that's happening is like under 150 is like a magical number, because with that many people, you can actually, I think Malcolm Gladwell took this research from someone else and restated it, but you can actually remember that many people. And so that community is fairly tight on the Discord. They have their own channel, so they know each other pretty well at this point. So it's a little bit, that in and of itself is I think a really powerful thing that happened with some of those tokens he did. The Gift Goats is 500. So that group, it's a little bigger. It's harder to really know people as much, but in a small Discord, you get to recognize people. And I think there's a lot of value in that, especially now when you consider that a lot of those people minted multiple VeeFriends. They started out knowing nothing about NFTs. They're now like fairly knowledgeable, and they've got a bag to work with. Like, you can start to make some really interesting connections and do things with that. So that's been pretty fascinating to watch.
Yeah, you'd mentioned in the past that you thought that was more valuable than Gift Goat because there's fewer slots.
Yeah, I'm really, the Gift Goat's been awesome to see the gifts that come and some of the really cool stuff he does with it. But at the end of the day, there's 555 Gift Goats. So when they're all used up, that's all they'll ever be. It'll be curious to see what happens with them after that. He has said with Series 2 and into the future, he's not going to do any more of the access tokens. But he's also kind of not said directly in any way, but he's alluded to the fact that those will continue to have value even after the period is up.
Well, I would think like for some people who want to launch a new product, you know, even after VeeFriends is over, they might pay him for the right to distribute their product to his 555 token holders. I mean, it's almost like Oprah Winfrey would do this at her show, right?
Yeah.
Oh, if you want to give everyone a new minivan, I'll let you give everyone a new minivan, right?
Yeah. And the cool thing about NFTs is that, I mean, some people are starting to think this way, but it's a permanent thing, right? Once the contractual utility promised is out, he might still decide, all right, Hawks now equal this, or whatever now equals this, or
do a special session for Hawks at the next VCon or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. You sort of have these buckets of holders now that have certain attributes about themselves, right? They have big bags of VeeFriends. They've got a community amongst themselves. You might want to leverage that community as a creator in a unique way, and then give them more utility that they also benefit from it. Yeah. It's interesting to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that was fun to talk about, Gary Vee, of course. Another thing is, hey, another week, another Bored Ape Yacht Club collab. This one was with SuperPlastic. They had, I mean, some people are like, wait, toys? But yes, these are like SuperPlastic does make actually physical world items. They had 4 versions. It depended on which tokens you had, I think, which you could get access to. I can't remember exactly what it was, but yeah, that first one, you had to own a mutant to get the third one over there, MAYC Curtis. There was something else in terms of having to be able to get the BAYC one. It was certainly you had to have an ape. You might have had to have a special attribute too. But in any event, they all sold out pretty quickly. seems interesting. I will say one thing that'll throw up. Someone's like, it seems weird that I have to connect a wallet with an asset in it worth $250,000 in order to buy a $200 toy.
That's fair, especially now in light of all the scams that are happening and the fear of connecting to anything that's not legit.
Well, here's what I'm thinking is having worked in cybersecurity in the past, if I'm going to do an attack, like these collabs are announced ahead of time. I could do, and we talk about someone like SuperPlastic, like great company. They're doing amazing things. I'm guessing they don't have a big cybersecurity defense budget. I could probably, through some means, get access, go in, and then do some sort of man-in-the-middle type of scam. It would probably be so much easier than setting up these third-party sites and hoping you get people to come and steal their ape.
Yeah,
because how quickly? I mean, you'd probably get a lot of them because these things too are the way SuperPlastic does. They do a drop just like an NFT, and like in this case, they're only available for purchase for 15 minutes. So you know when they're going to come. You're going to do 1,000 transactions really quickly. You could sweep up a lot of tokens before anybody knew what had happened.
Yeah. I mean, this stuff's going to get figured out, but it's scary.
Well, here's what I would like to see have happen. I would like to see Bored Ape, which does have the resources for cyber defense. I'd like to see them do something where they do the validation, like a snapshot type validation. And then they pass tokens over. And then people who own the apes then can move them to another wallet, for example. So you can just move them in and out of your wallet so that's not in your wallet when
that makes sense.
The purchase.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just like,
you just airdrop the thing that
or you just give them 1155s and you say, if you have one of these, and then that would be cool. Cause then you could resell your access token to somebody else. You say, geez, I really want that BAYC Curtis, I don't have an ape, I'll spend $500 to get access.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if you could even keep that, because you may not even have to burn it, right? You could keep that as your receipt that if they want to do some low level raffle in the future or some other thing.
Yeah, sure. Good stuff.
Yeah, I think that VeeFriends doing that with the tickets is smart too, right? Instead of going to claim the tickets, they just airdrop them to holders.
I love that.
Yeah.
We have something else. Degen Triology, another collab. This is Coinbase. They're going to do a 3-part film about the exploits of apes. It's going to debut at NFT NYC. That's in June. Okay, so I have a question for you. They have like an application process where people, if you have an ape, you could apply to have your ape included in the story. Is that really, they're going to do more than 1 or 2 of those? I think they're going after NFT influencers. They want the people who are already prominent in the space to help buttress this whole idea. Don't you think?
Yes and no. I think this has the opportunity to be just that, just like a shallow thing that won't, people get sick of it really fast. And else, on the flip side, I think it could be super fascinating. But I think it's execution dependent. Like how it's done is going to say whether it worked or not.
Well, it's going to depend who did it, who did the script, producers, directors, more so than the actual tokens, because like the character writing behind it's going to be more important than the show for the most part. And then what budget they put behind it. Is this a $2 million budget? Is it $10 million budget? $20 million? I mean, probably
an interesting thing to me is like, if they did this, if I, as a writer, right, I had one of these characters and I was developing a story around them or doing a weekly animated thing or something, and then someone's doing a movie and they want to include my ape with the sort of personality I've given them. This notion of a NFT of an animated character that has a writer associated with it, and they're like an identity in a way that gets invited to be animated in movies is strange but interesting. Another way it could go too is a lot of the forms are pretty simple. Like maybe they do it with these 8 apes, but maybe when you watch the film on your whatever, you plug your wallet in and it takes your ape and puts it as the main character. And
or just as an extra.
Yeah. Yeah. You just get, for your viewing pleasure, you get to see it with your ape on it or something. I don't know.
That would be clever. I like that. Yeah, I think so. This is cool. I mean, obviously, Bored Ape is important in the NFT community, but it's become a cultural touch point at this point. So it's a cool idea. The Coinbase is trying to align themselves with a culturally relevant project.
Yeah.
Pretty important for Coinbase because, you know, a lot of people use them, but they aren't loved universally. I mean, people feel
they're still an institution, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're Goldman Sachs for crypto, right? Or maybe JP Morgan Chase is a better example, but still, I mean, they're like a banker at this point, although Brian Armstrong maybe not very different from Jamie Dimon. So, but they don't have cultural cachet. They've never really had cachet.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, someone's got the rights thing to me is so fascinating. And I think someone's going to do something really amazing with it. Not to talk about Vaynerchuk again, but I know he falls on the total opposite end of the spectrum where he doesn't like that. It would be very easy. Geez, I don't even want to say it, but someone could do something very terrible and associate it with an ape and have the same effect, right? So, I'm really curious.
Yeah, someone could do it with cryptodes. Anyone could do it with cryptodes. And they would have full rights to do it.
And it just really depends on what the the one that I always go back to is Star Wars. And if Lucas had the chance now, instead of selling it to Disney, whether you like that or not, like how interesting would it be if he had sold those characters this way to people? And if you owned Chewbacca, you made all the Chewbacca stuff. And that was that. I don't know. There's interesting stuff of like, all this stuff is fascinating to me. And it reminds me of like all the Creative Commons, different forms of copyright you can do. And I think there's lots of interesting stuff there.
All right, Skot Leach, that's going to be a wrap for today. Anything you want to direct people to before we close out?
I will echo what you said in the beginning to check out the Niftorium project. And if you're an artist, get going. The artist I was advising and helping out sent me this really awesome care package. I wish I had it nearby. I'd share it. Next time we talk, I'll share it.
Okay.
With like physical stuff. Really cool. I was super excited to get it. It's been fun seeing some of those artists and watching their process and really cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, from where they started to where they got to. In fact, one of the people who attended, he was opposed to NFTs basically when we started talking to him, but we commissioned him to do some work. We begrudgingly did it because we paid him. And then he's like, well, I'm still kind of skeptical, but I think I should try to go through the accelerator because then I'll learn like whether my skepticism's justified.
Yes.
And then he came up with an amazing project. It was like really cool. And that's awesome. He's a very accomplished artist, so he's going to do fine.
Cool.
All right, everybody. That's it for a week. This week in NFT news, TWINN signing out for this week. Until next week, happy hunting. Follow Skot Leach and I on the Twitter. Bye-bye.